A wealthy business leader was entering his vehicle when he heard a 7-year-old African-American girl command him to be silent. He had absolutely no comprehension of her reason. "Be quiet and utter not a sound." Her piercing voice sliced through the stillness of the parking area with the sharpness of a blade. Jonathan Miller, the chief executive officer of Miller Industries, remained frozen, the ignition key still in his hand, positioned just outside his black BMW. The directive had originated from within the car itself. His vision adjusted to the subdued interior, and he spotted a young girl, approximately 7 years old, crouched in the rear seat, her eyes wide with apprehension. "They are observing," she whispered, discreetly indicating the corporate structure looming behind him. "Your associate and his fair-haired spouse. They mentioned you would be present at this exact moment." Jonathan, aged 52, had never conceived that his existence would undergo such a profound alteration due to an impoverished child. He had established Miller Industries from its very inception, transforming it into a technological enterprise valued at $200 million. He had placed his complete confidence in his partner, Marcus Williams, for 15 years, and in his executive assistant, Diana Foster, for a decade. "How did you gain entry into my automobile?" he inquired softly, sliding into the driver's seat with deliberate, unhurried movements. "The cleaning staff neglected to secure it upon their departure. I concealed myself because I overheard them discussing you on the upper level." Her small eyes gleamed with an intellect that was incongruous with her disheveled attire. "They stated that by tomorrow you will no longer possess any ownership." A chill coursed through Jonathan's veins. Tomorrow was the scheduled meeting with investors from Japan for a $400 million consolidation, a meeting that Marcus and Diana had painstakingly arranged. "What else did you glean?" he asked, feigning preoccupation with his mobile device while glancing at the illuminated panes on the 10th floor. "That you are quite foolish and intend to endorse documentation without thoroughly scrutinizing them." The woman with blonde hair chuckled, remarking that the day following tomorrow he would be compelled to seek alternative employment. The girl retreated further into the seat. "They uttered other disparaging remarks about you, but my grandmother consistently advised that children ought not to relay profane language." Jonathan experienced a complex sensation, a blend of indignation and an unexpected sentiment akin to admiration. This young girl had jeopardized her own safety to apprise a complete stranger of a profound act of treachery. "What is your designation?" "Jasmine. And yours is Jonathan Miller, for I have heard it articulated countless times." She paused. "Will you be surrendering me to the authorities presently?" For the first instance in many weeks, Jonathan's face broke into a genuine smile. "No, Jasmine. In truth, you may have preserved everything I have diligently constructed throughout my life." Through the rearview mirror, he observed the office lights extinguishing one by one. Marcus and Diana were likely descending at that very moment, assured that tomorrow would mark their ultimate success in neutralizing Jonathan. What they remained unaware of was that a millionaire chief executive officer had just secured the most improbable confederate imaginable, and that Jasmine, without conscious intent, had furnished him with something of far greater worth than any business negotiation. It is time to prepare. As he departed from the edifice, Jonathan was already commencing the formulation of a strategy. But the question lingered. Why would a 7-year-old girl imperil everything to safeguard an individual she had no prior acquaintance with? The resolution to that inquiry would redefine not only her personal retribution, but her entire understanding of justice. Should this narrative of perfidy and retribution resonate with you, ensure you subscribe to the channel to ascertain how the individual they most underestimated would ultimately become the perfect instrument of their own downfall. Jonathan navigated the tranquil thoroughfares of the metropolis, his intellect meticulously processing Jasmine's pronouncements, akin to assembling disparate fragments of a puzzle that were at last coalescing into a coherent image. In the back seat, the girl remained vigilant, her gaze fixed upon the rearward-facing mirrors. "Did they articulate anything further?" she inquired, maintaining a subdued vocalization. The woman with blonde hair remarked, "You place your trust in them much like a compliant canine." Jasmine grimaced with distaste, adding, "And tomorrow you will discover that small dogs occasionally bite their handlers." The casual malevolence of that observation struck Jonathan with the force of a physical blow. 15 years of partnership, a decade of unwavering faith in Diana, and they perceived him as a simpleton pet. "Where is your domicile, Jasmine?" "Nowhere in particular." She shrugged with an innate naturalness that caused his heart to ache. "Occasionally at the refuge, other times on the thoroughfares. It is contingent upon available space, or if the other youngsters are excessively troublesome." Jonathan halted at a traffic signal and turned to regard her directly. "Pray tell, why did you inform me? You do not even know me." Jasmine's eyes flickered with an precocious sagacity. "Because I comprehend what it signifies when individuals deem you to be unnoticeable. They were discussing you as though you were unintelligent, as though you were inconsequential." Her voice gained a measure of resolve. "My grandmother consistently declared, when you observe someone being subjugated and you possess the capacity to intervene, you offer assistance, for, in the ensuing instance, it could be you." The traffic signal transitioned to green, yet Jonathan remained stationary for several seconds, absorbing the profound lesson in humanity he had just received from a mere 7-year-old. 20 minutes later, they were seated in an unpopulated diner. Jasmine was voraciously consuming a hamburger, while Jonathan pretended to sip his chilled coffee. His mobile device vibrated. A message from Marcus. "Prepared for tomorrow, my friend? The Japanese will undoubtedly appreciate our proposal. You shall retire in affluence." Jonathan presented the screen to Jasmine, who emitted a soft chuckle. "He possesses considerable audacity, does he not? He deceives you to your face, and yet maintains a cheerful demeanor." Marcus had always exhibited such a disposition. Charming, persuasive. Jonathan typed a cordial rejoinder, concealing the simmering indignation within. "Diana, too. She is privy to my schedule with greater precision than I am. She has access to every facet of the organization, and you are permitting them to dupe you tomorrow." Jonathan smiled, a genuine expression this time. "No, Jasmine, but it is imperative they remain unaware that I possess this knowledge." Another message arrived, this time from Diana. "Jonathan, I have meticulously reviewed the final contractual agreements. Everything is perfectly aligned for endorsement. Place your confidence in me, as you invariably have." The disquieting nature of that communication, artfully disguised as affection, caused Jonathan's stomach to churn. For 10 years, Diana had served as his confidant, the individual responsible for orchestrating his affairs, the one privy to his itinerary, his access codes, his deepest anxieties. "Do they possess knowledge of your personal matters?" inquired Jasmine, meticulously wiping her ketchup-stained digits. "They are privy to all of it. Banking credentials, corporate accounts, the precise locations where I safeguard critical documentation." The sheer magnitude of the betrayal was beginning to register. "They have had extensive periods to strategize. However, you also possess information on them from prior years, correct?" Jonathan paused, a beverage glass halfway to his lips. Jasmine's observation was accurate. 15 years of shared partnership. A decade of dedicated executive assistance. He was privy to their secrets with the same intimacy as they were to his. Marcus's clandestine rendezvous with rival enterprises, which he believed remained undetected. The fabricated bonus structure Diana had devised for herself. The electronic correspondences he had inadvertently glimpsed. The hushed conversations he had overheard when they assumed his inattention. "You possess a remarkably keen intellect, Jasmine. My grandmother was wont to say that when one possesses nothing, one cultivates the habit of observing everything." She daintily wiped her hands on a paper napkin. "They assume you are obtuse, yet you are not, are you?" Jonathan offered a smile, experiencing a sensation that had eluded him for years. A fusion of optimism and resolute determination. "No, I am not." His mobile phone rang, Marcus undoubtedly eager to confirm some last-minute detail, to solidify the final trap. Jonathan answered with the most convivial tone he could muster. "Jonathan, I am delighted you have arrived. Diana and I are here, attending to the final arrangements. Are you resting adequately? Tomorrow promises to be a momentous occasion." "I am superb, Marcus. I eagerly anticipate observing the unfolding of events. It shall be flawless. Trust me, we have meticulously handled every contingency. Your sole obligation is to present yourself and affix your signature at the designated locations indicated by Diana." The sheer arrogance palpable in Marcus's voice was almost tangible. They genuinely believed they had reduced Jonathan to a mere automaton, destined to follow a preordained script. After concluding the call, Jasmine scrutinized him intently. "You are formulating a stratagem, are you not? Your eyes convey a different sentiment. Every dismissive utterance, every falsehood cloaked as solicitude, every disingenuous smile from the preceding months began to resonate with clarity. Marcus and Diana had not merely betrayed his trust, they had fundamentally underestimated his capacity for formidable opposition. What those two individuals failed to comprehend was that years spent cultivating enterprises had instilled in Jonathan a fundamental principle. The most effective strategies are not proclaimed, but are executed in silence. And while they prematurely reveled in their anticipated triumph, he was poised to transform their hubris into the very snare that would lead to their ultimate undoing. The subsequent morning, Jonathan awakened with a mental clarity that had been absent for months. Jasmine was slumbering on the living room sofa, enveloped in a blanket he had retrieved from the closet. For a fleeting moment, he observed the child who, in a single night, had irrevocably altered the trajectory of his existence. His mobile device vibrated, a message from Diana, received at 6:15 in the morning. "Good morning, esteemed supervisor. I have been present at the office since 5 o'clock, ensuring all preparations are in order. The Japanese representatives are scheduled to arrive at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Your only requirement is to repose your trust in me and append your signature as directed, just as you have always done." Jonathan offered a sardonic smile. The very same Diana, who exerted herself to ensure his downfall, was now professing devotion, emulating a maternal figure. "You are devising a scheme, are you not?" remarked Jasmine, stretching languidly on the sofa. "Your demeanor has shifted subtly. I require your assistance, Jasmine. Would it be feasible for you to return there today and discreetly overhear further discourse from them?" The girl sat up abruptly, her expression growing serious. "That presents a considerable risk." "I am aware. That is precisely why I shall arrange for someone to provide you with protection." Jonathan had solidified his resolve during his wakeful night. "I am acquainted with a private investigator, Gabriel Torres. He previously provided services for me, conducting background checks on significant clientele." Gabriel responded on the second ring, his voice bearing a dryly familiar resonance. "Jonathan, what an unexpected pleasure. I had presumed you had relegated me to obscurity after the termination of my contract last year." The irony of the situation was not lost on him. Gabriel had been dismissed by Marcus and Diana, who cited budgetary constraints as the rationale. Jonathan now apprehended the genuine motive. Gabriel possessed an excessive degree of perceptiveness and posed too many probing inquiries. "Gabriel, I must convey that your dismissal was not a decision I sanctioned." A moment of silence ensued from the other end of the line. Subsequently, a low, dry chuckle. "I had surmised as much." Marcus harbored no affection for investigators who persistently posed inconvenient questions. "What is it that you require?" 2 hours later, Gabriel was seated in Jonathan's kitchen, regarding Jasmine with a blend of admiration and trepidation. He was a man of 45 years, a former member of the constabulary, his hands bearing the marks of old scars and his eyes missing nothing. "So, this diminutive investigator has unearthed a corporate conspiracy involving $200 million. Gabriel shook his head in astonishment. "Jasmine, you possess an innate aptitude for this endeavor. My grandmother was wont to say that when one possesses nothing, one cultivates the habit of listening to everything," she replied, taking a bite of toast. Gabriel retrieved a tablet from his satchel. "Jonathan, while Jasmine was safeguarding your enterprise, I was independently investigating certain matters. I never harbored any fondness for the manner of my dismissal." His fingers glided across the screen, revealing intricate spreadsheets and corroborating documentation. "Marcus and Diana are not merely perfidious, they are pilferers." The evidence presented was devastating. Suspicious financial transfers, fabricated contractual agreements, clients who existed solely on paper. For a period of 2 years, they had illicitly diverted over $5 million from the company, meticulously constructing an intricate network of clandestine entities. The proposed merger with the Japanese consortium is not primarily an initiative for expansion, Gabriel elucidated. It is fundamentally a mechanism for money laundering. They necessitate your endorsement to legitimize the retroactive transfers. Subsequent to that, they intend to remove you, thereby rendering the entire operation seamless. Jonathan perceived a chilling anger gradually ascend within his chest. This transcended mere personal betrayal. It constituted organized criminal activity. "They have absconded with the company I meticulously erected with my own faculties," he murmured. "They exploited my trust to finance their own illicit enterprises." Jasmine leaned forward. "Now the intrigue truly commences. They erroneously believe you to be naive, yet you are supported by an investigator and a sharp-witted young lady, and they are entirely oblivious to this arrangement." Jonathan's mobile device rang. Marcus, without a doubt, seeking to confirm some final detail to fortify the ultimate entrapment. "Jonathan, I trust you have slumbered soundly. Diana and I have been engaged since the early hours of this morning, meticulously finalizing the minutiae. The Japanese delegation will undoubtedly be impressed by our organizational prowess." "I am certain they shall be," Jonathan responded, his tone carefully modulated to convey neutrality. "One further point," Marcus continued, and Jonathan could distinctly perceive the predatory glint in his voice. "Diana proposed that you need not concern yourself with the review of the documentation today. They are rather technical in nature, and you have always placed your trust in our collective expertise, have you not? Simply make your appearance and affix your signature as she instructs." The sheer audacity was nauseating. They truly believed they could abscond with $200 million and yet expect him to express gratitude for their assistance. Upon concluding the call, Gabriel regarded Jonathan intently. "You possess two viable avenues. Option 1, contact the authorities forthwith and endeavor to substantiate these allegations through judicial proceedings, thereby risking their acquittal on technicalities. Option 2, permit them to ensnare themselves. Proceed to the meeting, but not in the guise of the victim they anticipate. Present yourself as the hunter they never conceived you could embody." Jasmine applauded with unrestrained enthusiasm, reminiscent of a scene from a motion picture. "You shall feign compliance with signing, yet you are already apprised of all pertinent details." Gabriel offered a smile, the first since his arrival. "Precisely. And whilst they are preemptively celebrating their supposed victory, you shall apprehend them red-handed, presenting irrefutable evidence to the authorities." His mobile device vibrated once more, a message from Diana. "Jonathan, you are the preeminent supervisor a subordinate could aspire to. Following today, I am confident our professional association will endure indefinitely." The sheer hypocrisy of that communiqué caused Jonathan's stomach to churn. Diana was not merely engaging in financial larceny. She was relishing the humiliation she had meticulously planned for him. "They perceive me as a sentimentally inclined simpleton," Jonathan declared, setting his phone aside. "They interpret my inherent kindness as a deficiency." Gabriel closed his tablet, his gaze hardening. "Then it is time to demonstrate to them that benevolence, when coupled with strategic acumen, can constitute a formidable combination." Jasmine sprang from the couch, her eyes alight with unyielding determination. "And I can be of assistance. I can discreetly position myself near the conference chamber and meticulously record every utterance using your mobile device." For a brief interval, Jonathan hesitated. She was, after all, a 7-year-old child. However, he then recalled the profound risk she had willingly undertaken to apprise him of the impending betrayal. "Very well," he conceded at last. "However, Gabriel shall maintain constant vigilance over you." Gabriel inclined his head in affirmation. "It shall be a distinct pleasure to witness those two individuals discover the folly of underestimating the wrong parties." As they collaboratively delineated the final strategic points, Jonathan experienced a sensation he had not encountered in years. The exhilarating thrill of the pursuit. Marcus and Diana had invested 2 full years in meticulously constructing their foolproof trap. What they remained unaware of was that within a few hours, that very same trap would be sprung upon them, with a force capable of dismantling not only their meticulously laid plans, but their entire existence. For 15 years, Jonathan had embodied the role of the trusted confidant, the understanding mentor, the individual who consistently perceived the best in others. Today, they would unequivocally discover that a far more perilous manifestation of kindness exists, the kind that emerges when one's patience is irrevocably exhausted. The scheduled meeting was set for 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but by 2:05, Marcus and Diana would be confronted with the stark reality that the meek lamb they erroneously believed they were leading to its demise had, in fact, developed formidable fangs. And today, finally, he would deploy them with absolute precision. Precisely at 2 o'clock, Jonathan entered the Miller Industries conference chamber, projecting an aura of routine normalcy. Marcus and Diana were already present, diligently arranging stacks of documentation, with the meticulousness of surgeons preparing for an intricate procedure. "Jonathan?" Marcus rose with an effusive smile, embracing him as if he were a cherished sibling. "It is gratifying that you have arrived. The Japanese delegation is en route, and every element is in perfect alignment." Diana approached, carrying a leather briefcase and displaying a maternal smile. "Esteemed supervisor, your only task is to affix your signature at the locations I have marked with yellow adhesive notes. Place your confidence in me, as you invariably have." Her voice conveyed that condescending assurance characteristic of individuals who perceive themselves as interacting with a child. "Certainly," Jonathan replied with palpable calm. "However, before we proceed, I wish to present a rather intriguing discovery I made last evening." Gabriel Torres entered the room, bearing a sizable box filled with dossiers, followed closely by 2 federal law enforcement investigators. Marcus and Diana exchanged rapid furtive glances, but maintained their outward composure. "Gabriel," Marcus frowned, "I was under the impression that your services were no longer retained by our organization." "I am," Gabriel responded with dry precision. "However, my allegiance now lies with the rightful proprietor of the company." Jonathan connected his laptop to the room's projector. "Marcus, Diana, do you recall this particular discourse?" The screen illuminated, displaying meticulously detailed spreadsheets illustrating bank transfers, specific dates, and precise monetary amounts. $5,300,000 illicitly acquired over a period of 2 years. Diana's smile faltered for the first time. "Jonathan, what precisely is the nature of this? Is this some form of jest? Jest?" Jonathan clicked to the subsequent display. Photographs materialized, depicting Marcus entering and exiting offshore banking institutions, alongside signed documentation and fabricated contracts. "You have orchestrated the establishment of 17 fictitious entities to launder the funds you have absconded with from me." Marcus abruptly stood, his carefully cultivated facade of the charm finally crumbling. "From what source did you procure this information?" "This information is strictly confidential." "Confidential?" Jonathan emitted a soft chuckle. "Marcus, do you genuinely surmise that I meticulously constructed a business valued at $200 million without acquiring the requisite skills to safeguard my own financial interests?" Diana attempted to maintain her composure, yet her hands trembled perceptibly as she clutched the folder. "Jonathan, there appears to be a fundamental misunderstanding on your part. These financial transactions possess perfectly legitimate explanations," Gabriel interjected, extending an envelope to each of the investigators. "Contained herein are the audio recordings of the private conversations between these 2 individuals, wherein they meticulously planned this fraudulent merger." He then placed a second envelope upon the table. "Within this is contained the sworn testimonies of 3 non-existent clients whom you fabricated, all of whom are prepared to testify in judicial proceedings." Marcus's countenance flushed with a combination of unbridled anger and palpable panic. "You possess no verifiable proof. These are merely baseless accusations." Jonathan offered a smile, the first he had managed since his arrival in the room. "Marcus, do you perhaps recall Jasmine? Who, in the name of all that is holy, is Jasmine?" The door swung open, revealing the 7-year-old girl accompanied by a social worker. Her eyes shone with unwavering resolve as she approached the conference table. "Greetings, Mr. Marcus," she stated, her voice possessing a sweetness tempered with firm authority. "Do you recall me? I was concealed beneath your desk last night when you communicated with Mr. Yamamoto, informing him that you intended to usurp Mr. Jonathan's company." The silence that permeated the room was utterly deafening. Marcus opened and closed his mouth several times, entirely incapable of formulating coherent speech. Diana attempted one final gambit, her voice escalating to a high-pitched register of desperation. A mere child? You intend to accord greater credibility to a street urchin over established professionals. Gabriel retrieved his mobile device and activated playback. Diana's voice reverberated throughout the chamber with crystal clarity. Jonathan is a sentimentally impaired imbecile. The day after tomorrow, he will be compelled to seek alternative employment, and we shall acquire everything. That buffoon will never comprehend the force with which he has been struck. Marcus's own voice followed on the recording. 15 years of feigning camaraderie with that simpleton. It shall be worth every passing second when I witness the expression on his face upon realizing he has forfeited all. Diana collapsed into her chair, her face bleached to the pallor of a freshly washed sheet. Marcus slammed his fist upon the table with such force that the documents were scattered violently. You absolute scoundrel! You have orchestrated our downfall. Jonathan remained composed, his voice a low but incisive instrument. I did not orchestrate your downfall, Marcus. You have diligently excavated your own abyss for the past 2 years. I merely furnished you with the necessary implements. One of the investigators stepped forward. Marcus Williams and Diana Foster, you are hereby taken into custody under charges of embezzlement, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit corporate fraud. As the metallic click of handcuffs echoed around Marcus's wrists, he bellowed, This legal proceeding will not stand. I shall utterly ruin you. Jonathan rose, adjusting his tie with his customary composure. Marcus, you have already made concerted efforts to obliterate me. The salient distinction is that my proficiency in such matters surpasses your own. Diana wept silently as she was escorted away. Yet Jonathan felt no inclination towards pity. He recalled the numerous occasions she had offered him a disingenuous smile, while simultaneously pilfering his assets. All the affectionate digital messages she had dispatched, while meticulously planning his ruination. Jasmine approached him, gently tugging at his hand. Mr. Jonathan, will they truly be incarcerated? Yes, Jasmine. For an extended duration. Gabriel closed his briefcase with an expression of profound satisfaction. Jonathan, the Japanese representatives initiated contact to postpone the meeting upon hearing of the investigation, but 3 other corporations have proactively reached out, expressing legitimate interest in forming partnerships. My company emerges considerably more robust than ever, unburdened by parasitic entities draining its resources. You will soon ascertain its true intrinsic worth. As the space cleared, Jonathan observed the departing police van through the window. For a span of 15 years, his faith in Marcus had been absolute. For 10 years, Diana had been treated as cherished family. Their actions had twisted his inherent kindness into a vulnerability, and his unwavering trust into naivety. Jasmine remained steadfastly beside him, mirroring his gaze at the retreating vehicle. Mr. Jonathan, are you feeling sorrowful? He was asked by the young girl who had, in essence, preserved everything he had meticulously constructed. Jonathan responded, No, Jasmine. For the first time in a significant period, I feel a profound sense of tranquility. He elaborated, This peace stems from recognizing that individuals like yourself exist in this world, people who act honorably, even when there is no personal gain to be had. Outside, Marcus and Diana came to the stark realization that their profound arrogance had cost them not only their professional standing, but also their liberty. Within the confines of the room, Jonathan understood that the most valuable consequence of betrayal could be the clarity it provides, revealing those who genuinely merit one's confidence. However, a singular query lingered, poised to reshape everything. What compels a 7-year-old child to jeopardize their entire existence for a stranger? The ensuing revelation would unveil a connection so deeply rooted that even Jonathan could not have conceived of it. 6 months later, Jonathan was situated in his new office, considerably more expansive than his prior workspace, observing the vibrant urban panorama unfolding below from the 20th floor. Miller Industries had experienced a remarkable 40% expansion, subsequent to the apprehension of Marcus and Diana, finally liberated from the detrimental influences that had been systematically depleting its resources. Gabriel arrived, tapping on the door with a briefcase in hand and a discernible smile. "Here's the latest regarding our former associates," he announced. "Marcus has received a sentence of 12 years in correctional custody. Diana has been sentenced to 8 years. They have forfeited all of their possessions. Their residences have been confiscated to compensate the company. The legal firm representing them withdrew from the case upon discovering their attempt to suborn testimony." Jonathan acknowledged the information with a nod, experiencing a quiet sense of vindication, yet devoid of any malice. "And the other individuals affected by their deceit?" Jonathan inquired. Gabriel replied, "We've identified 7 additional business people whom they defrauded over the past 5 years. All are pursuing legal action to recover their losses. Marcus and Diana orchestrated a far more extensive scheme than we initially suspected." Jasmine then entered, returning from the private educational institution, where Jonathan had enrolled her. Her school attire was immaculate, her new satchel resting upon her back, and her eyes sparkled with an intelligence that was ever present, now further enhanced by education and a sense of security. "Mr. Jonathan, I achieved an A on my mathematics examination," she declared, proudly displaying the paper. "Congratulations, Jasmine," Jonathan responded. "I had absolute faith in your ability to accomplish this." Gabriel observed their interaction with a smile, remarking, "It still feels quite extraordinary that a 7-year-old individual was instrumental in saving a company valued at $200 million. Jonathan then clarified, "Actually, there is something pertinent that both of you need to be privy to. It's something I uncovered a few weeks ago." He produced a folder containing official legal documentation. "Jasmine, do you recall your maternal grandmother's given name?" "Of course," she affirmed. "Josephine Miller. Why do you ask?" Gabriel's eyebrows rose in curiosity. "Miller, as in—" Jonathan opened the folder, revealing birth certificates, ancestral records, and vintage photographs. "Josephine Miller was my cousin. She was the daughter of my father's brother, with whom our family lost contact over 30 years ago." An absolute silence descended upon the room. Jasmine's gaze shifted from the documents to Jonathan, her mind absorbing the implications of this revelation. "This implies that we are, in fact, related by blood," Jonathan stated softly. "Your grandmother frequently spoke of you to the social workers, highlighting your exceptional intelligence and your remarkable courage." He continued, "When I commenced my investigation following that pivotal evening, all the fragmented pieces of the puzzle suddenly coalesced into a coherent picture." Jasmine rushed into his embrace, tears of emotion streaming down her cheeks. "I knew it. I always suspected you were different. Grandma always used to say that family looks out for family." Gabriel cleared his throat, clearly touched by the unfolding emotional scene. "So, when she cautioned you about the conspiracy," Jonathan interjected, completing Gabriel's thought, "it was an instinctive act of familial protection." He explained, "She was not consciously aware of our familial connection, but some intrinsic part of her recognized the underlying bond." 3 months later, the formal adoption proceedings took place in the very same courthouse where Marcus and Diana had been convicted. Jasmine, now legally recognized as Jasmine Miller, was attired in a delicate blue dress, her hand clasped tightly with Jonathan's. The presiding judge offered a warm smile as he affixed his signature to the final decrees. "It is exceedingly rare," he commented, "to witness a narrative that commences with transgression and culminates in the reunion of a family." Later, at the celebratory dinner, Jasmine looked at Jonathan with a characteristic seriousness often seen in children. "Mr. Jonathan," she began, then corrected herself. "Dad, do you believe Grandma had an inkling this would transpire?" Jonathan paused, reflecting on the question, recalling how Jasmine had entered his life precisely when his need for her was greatest. "I believe your grandmother possessed far greater insight than we may realize," he mused, "and I suspect she would be immensely proud to witness how you have effectively safeguarded our family." On the first anniversary of Marcus and Diana's arrests, Jonathan received 2 letters within the same week. The initial correspondence was from Marcus, dispatched from his correctional facility. A rather pitiable attempt at an apology, proposing that the entire affair had been a mere misunderstanding. The second missive originated from Diana, also from her incarceration, wherein she assigned all blame to Marcus and endeavored to portray herself as the victim. Jonathan, without perusing either letter in its entirety, promptly tore them to shreds. "They still do not grasp the fundamental truth," Jasmine commented, observing the shredded fragments in the waste receptacle. "It is not about forgiveness or the absence thereof. It is about progressing forward and aspiring to be a better version of oneself." The profound wisdom exhibited by that child continued to astonish Jonathan on a daily basis. 5 years elapsed, and Miller Industries had ascended to prominence, becoming one of the 100 largest technology corporations within the nation. Jonathan instituted a scholarship initiative specifically for underprivileged children, providing financial support for education and lodging to over 200 youngsters annually. Jasmine, now 12 years of age, served as the honorary chairperson of this program, personally selecting the recipients and offering guidance to other young individuals navigating challenges akin to those she had previously encountered. "Do you know what the most cherished day of my existence was?" Jasmine inquired during the program's anniversary gala. "And what day was that?" she was asked. "The day I stepped into your automobile and resolved to place my trust in you, because on that particular day, I was not solely preserving your enterprise. I was, in essence, salvaging our family." Jonathan offered a gentle smile, his gaze fixed upon the young girl who had blossomed into his daughter, and the singular greatest source of his pride. Marcus and Diana had harbored the intention of dismantling everything he had painstakingly established. However, in their misguided efforts, they had inadvertently bestowed upon him the most invaluable gift of his life: the opportunity to discover that the essence of family transcends mere biological ties, encompassing instead courage, unwavering loyalty, and boundless, unconditional love. He had come to understand that true retribution is not found in obliterating those who have betrayed you. Rather, it resides in cultivating something so exceptionally beautiful and robust that their act of betrayal becomes a mere insignificant footnote within the triumphant narrative of your accomplishments. Marcus and Diana had sought to pilfer his company, yet ultimately conferred upon him something far more profound than they could ever have fathomed: a daughter, a definitive purpose, and irrefutable evidence that, on occasion, the universe employs the most unexpected individuals to provide precisely what is most needed. Should this narrative of familial bonds, the pursuit of justice, and the prospect of second chances resonate deeply within your heart, we encourage you to subscribe to the channel for an abundance of additional narratives that underscore the truth that genuine triumph is not measured by the vanquishing of adversaries, but by the discovery of those allies who have invariably stood by our side, patiently awaiting the opportune moment for their unveiling.